Discover KDH Collective's Leaning into Therapy podcast, an enlightening exploration of therapeutic approaches and evidence-based protocols. Join us as we delve into the vast landscape of therapeutic interventions, guided by the belief that collective intelligence surpasses individual expertise. Led by Katie Holmes, a licensed professional counselor with 16 years in private practice. This series offers valuable insights, expertise, and training from a team of skilled therapists. Prepare to immerse yourself in the world of therapy, created exclusively for therapists by therapists.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Leaning into Therapy. I'm here with KD. You have a class coming up, Mastering OCD. What is the full title?
I think it's Mastering Complex Cases,
Yes.
OCD, and Advanced ERP, or maybe
That,
it's just Advanced ERP. It's something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm remembering too. So the first thought that I had about this class is this is part of our OCD series. Can you talk a little bit about what differentiates this class from the other OCD classes?
So I think this is just how my brain works. Like when you're learning about treating any issue, you start with what's the diagnosis, right? And I did a class just on that. That was differentiating OCD and anxiety disorders. And I included any diagnosis that could be helped with exposure and response prevention in that class. Okay. Then the next one's the art of ERP, which is about the application of exposure and response prevention for all those diagnoses that we talked about in the first course. And then the third one is when you're trying to do ERP and it's just not working, and you can't figure out why it's not working. So some of the original ways that I was taught is that it's a treatment interfering behavior.
Mhm. If there's something about the client that is like not following the rules or something like that.
Yes. And what I love to say is that we put protocol first, client second, and it should be client first, protocol second. Do we sometimes have clients that do not want to do the work? Yes. Yes, fair. But most of the time, my clients genuinely want to do the work, but they have things that are getting in the way.
hmm I'm thinking that that concept of like protocol, then client versus client, then protocol, that switch might be difficult for people who are drawn to ERP because I think one of the things that might draw people to ERP is that it is like a step one, step two, step three kind of thing. It can be very like structured by the book. Here's what you do, then here's what you do next. And so I could imagine a lot of people who are working with OCD and OCD-like things in the therapy room would really struggle when step one, step two, step three are not working.
Well, and yes, and I think the way that we are taught is a very regimented sort of protocol. And I have,
Yeah, if the protocol doesn't work, it must be something about the client.
and look, it's a religion almost. Like, and I've fallen into that, and I think developmentally as a therapist lately, I've been like, okay, if I trust myself, if I trust what I know, so I try to know clinical things really well. Then what else is happening in the therapy room that's really important that really moves people towards change? And it's the relationship, right? It's our ability to connect. It's this very relational presence. I wrote something recently about presence, like being very present, which isn't always like Pollyanna happy things. Sometimes it's like, oh wow, this looks really difficult. You look very pissed at me. Do you want to scream at me right now? I mean, it can be intense. Um, but I think that little piece of, I shouldn't say little, but it's an important part to include when you're helping someone with a severe mental health issue.
For sure. I mean, and some of the things that can show up with OCD feel, oh man, like I can't imagine as a client the the stress, like the distress that they would feel with some of these obsessions and some of the compulsions. So, yeah, the relationship, I don't know how somebody would do really effective ERP without having that relationship.
Well, and this is where it gets a little shady because the traditional ways that we understand relationship in therapy and rapport are kind of counter to doing ERP,
Can you
right?
give an example? What kind of
So
things do you hear?
okay, so the way I understood rapport is don't upset your client, don't make them uncomfortable. If they're uncomfortable, you're somehow harming them or moving them in some bad direction, right? You're not having good rapport. Well, rapport is not that. Rapport is trust. And trust is built not on again, I'm afraid to upset you. It's like, hey, I'm going to be here with you when you are upset. I'm going to be with you in that distress. You aren't alone. I think that's rapport. Um, so I think it's therapist misunderstanding.
I was thinking too, because I know like as therapist training changes and as, therapy, we have like all these like the hot concepts and the hot types of treatment that come through. Like I think there is like a gradual shift in the world of like therapist training where I think most therapists when they hear your explanation of like rapport, they're like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. What immediately came to my brain though was I don't think clients understand rapport that way. And so I wonder if maybe
Mm.
where we are in 2026 for the clients who are coming to therapists, especially like in our area where there's so many new little baby therapists all the time. Maybe the hard sell is that the rapport needs to be explained to the client, so that they have the understanding. It's almost like building their engagement in the rapport, if that makes sense.
That is a very interesting point. And I think you're right. I think they see stuff online and they expect it's going to be whatever they see online.
Surely, if I
Um,
go to therapy, I'm gonna feel better.
yeah, not always. Sometimes you feel worse. And sometimes it's about feeling tolerance for the worse.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what complex OCD that course is about. It's not about abandoning ERP. It's about lessening how you do it, changing how you do it, but staying the course and not trying to do a quick fix.
Mm,
Sometimes this takes time. And you have a lot of factors that are between you and your client, not just the OCD or the ERP. You have their own history. Maybe they have a long history of mental health. You have that. There might be, oh, this is where I go into complexity. So you might have personality disorders. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder can be super intense. You might have borderline. You might even have just like histrionic or some personality issues like perfectionism, things like that,
mhm,
that are really debilitating. You might have a trauma history. There might be PTSD, and that might be a part of what's coming up with your client because they have a relationship with distress that's unbearable, that's intolerable for them.
mhm,
Um, you might also have ADHD,
mhm,
which makes that impulsive, like compulsive little line quicker, right? Because people with ADHD sometimes struggle with impulsivity. And so they might need reminders or, it's not treatment interfering. They just really are forgetting. Uh, and then with autism,
mhm,
I think often in autistics, it gets misunderstood. They look at special interests or monotropism or things like that as an obsession. And it's not because it doesn't create distress, or they look at their stimming behavior as a compulsion. It's not. And so, being able to identify really what it is and how to help the client is important.
Yeah, I think that's been the big, I was about to say surprise. I guess probably surprise is appropriate. That's been the big surprise for me probably over the last year when I'm thinking about my clients and where things have been particularly like a puzzle. Trying to tease apart like is this OCD? Because there's definitely OCD there, but is this little piece OCD or is this little piece a nature of the autism and the flavor of their neurotype? And it's really like it's very nice to have like an OCD community so built around KDH because man, it's so nice to be able to just be like, I think this is an autism thing and know who I can then send my client to help with that. Um, yeah, I wonder, do you have any, obviously not specific cases, but like, could you give an example of how it might look when some of these other, personality traits, neurotype, like I wonder if you have a specific where it got a little tricky.
So I have some. Okay, one. These would be examples. Client comes in. Yes, I want to do the work. And they're willing, and so we start on the protocol. And then maybe we get to a relationship OCD issue, right? And they're like, I don't know about that one. And I'm like, well, I mean, if we're going to do ERP, we need to do it on all things distressing in your life, right? And so they're obsessing about, do I love my partner enough? And there are some real problems in the relationship because the client has a personality disorder, right? And so then it's like, oh, do we pause ERP
Mm-mm.
and send them to a DBT therapist to address the personality issues? I typically do both and. I'm a very both and person. Like, let's stay the course, let's do ERP slowly. And we're going to look at the personality disorders, see what it is, identify it appropriately, send you to someone for help with that while we work on ERP as well. So, yeah, it might take a lot longer to get through the whole protocol, but it's a very important part. So, trauma, another great one. People are like, trauma history, I'm not doing ERP.
Mm.
ERP is so effective. It's what we do with distress, right? Compulsions can be very powerful because they give you a temporary sense of relief. And so, even if it's trauma related, teaching them to abstain from their compulsive behavior can create improvement in their life. Um, Now, I'm not going to do exposure work. If they were sexually abused, I'm not like watch a show of sexual abuse. Um,
Yeah, I
to,
mean, the exposure still has to fit within like being worth it.
correct.
If they were, I could imagine maybe that would be appropriate if they like could not watch TV, could not watch movies, whereas like before the trauma or whatever, maybe that was like a big part of their relationship with other humans. Then like, sure, maybe we could like get used to like violence on TV or something. But some of the time it has to be just like not worth it, not that important.
Correct. It has to fit them. But I still think with a true OCD person, it's so powerful for them to learn that compulsive behavior is not going to help me long term. It's like it's going to give me a temporary relief, and then I'll have to do it 1,000 times in a day. And so if I really want to empower my client, I'm going to be moving them towards like a better headspace or a better relationship with coping effectively. Um,
I think
and
this is a really good like the way you just described it just now is such a good way of helping people understand like your take on OCD. I think I can speak for you. I think you feel this way when as a practice being neurodiversity affirming that like OCD as a neurotype that like people who end up with an OCD diagnosis, their brains are naturally obsessive. And even if they go through like ERP really, really successfully, their brain will continue to be very obsessive. But through ERP, they can learn that they don't have to let their brain boss them around. Which I think is so, I don't know, this feels like a really important piece of the way that you do OCD, with it being like a neurotype and not like a condition that's going to go away.
Well, yeah, because they're going to have it at the end of our work together. And I think in the past where I kind of failed some of my clients was I was so focused on just OCD and ERP because that's how I'm trained, right? And I kind of forgot the rest of the person. And so after years of doing this, I realized because I would always on the back end do ERP and then go back and do whatever else we needed to do for the client. And some clients, if they had severe personality disorders, I did lose them in the process. But now I'm starting to learn it's like both and. We're going to do both together. It's not, you're treating the whole human. And I think you have to just be careful that you're still doing ERP. And sometimes in order to do ERP well, we do have to explain OCD, which seems like reassuring. We do have to provide psychoeducation. Your
Mhm.
client needs to know it's OCD and needs to be committed to doing the exposures that are in line with them. And that's the big thing that I think the complex cases really gets into.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, we're trying to build a framework so they're willing to do the work
Mm.
and not just abandon the work. So sometimes when you're building the framework, it's going to take 6 months. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's too long. I'm like, well, this person's been living this way their whole life. 6 months really isn't that long.
Yeah, I think that would also be one of those points that might be surprising to people coming into this particular class is like when I'm thinking back to when I learned about OCD and exposure therapy, like it kind of was touted as like it can be really, really quick. And it probably can be in some cases. Like it can be a quick treatment for some people, but I think the clients that you have found and who have found you have been ones where the OCD has really kind of taken over in a way that can't be quick. Because it's really sneaky, right?
Because it's how they manage distress. And so even when they think they're through it, they'll have a flare up because their brain will always work this way. Neurologically, this is what their brain naturally wants to do with distress. And so changing that, they call it like relapse prevention. I don't know how I feel about that word, but basically, it's going to happen again and it's okay. Again, I love that because it is very neurodiversity affirming.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too. Like if you come at this as like you have a brain that's very obsessive, then it's like, oh, okay, well then that makes sense that like this is going to be something that can and probably will show up for my whole life. But if you're coming at it as like condition, then they go through treatment and then when it shows back up, they're like, treatment failed. I'm a failure.
That's it. Yes. Yes. And then what are we doing? We're selling this whole idea to them that they're broken when really the idea that they would never have it again is on us. That's the messed up part. That's where I get really really emotional about what are we selling our clients. You cannot tell them they will never be this way again. Like that is an impossible goal that they're destined to fail and then they'll be in therapy the rest of their life thinking they're just jacked up and unfixable when really it's us that led them astray, right? And look, I've done it too. Like, oh, we'll be free of it, coexisting with it better, learning to have that relative that drives you bonkers that you're with a lot. I mean, that's how I see it. Um, we can still have a happy life in spite of it.
Yes.
And when you do the work, it's not like here, it's in the background. And so it is easier and you do feel free. But if it comes back, you didn't fail. It's
Hmm.
all of it. So I love the complex cases. I love the integration of all the other work I do with my clients. I'm very relational. And I love ERP. So I love the structure. I love the boundaries. I do. I love the boundaries where it's like, well, this is the protocol. What are you willing to do? I like anything that creates choice
Hmm.
and agreements in the relationship. Therapy is a very intimate connection you have with your clients. It's getting me a little emotional. Um, I had a client die recently. It just reminded me of that. But you get these super intense connections when you're with them in the suffering. If you're not with them in the suffering, you're not going to feel connected to them. It's a fascinating sort of thing. But when you're really present with them, man, it's almost like you feel it. And so I think being able to like teach them about themselves in a way that's accepting and integrating, I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
We can throw all our skills, all our stuff in it and just help.
Yeah, I think this flavor of ERP is so unique to the way that you've integrated like the neurodiversity affirming stuff. Like it also feels very naturally integrated with ACT, even though I think that you wouldn't necessarily say that you're an ACT clinician. Like it's very ACT. So I think it's again, when I'm thinking about like the change of what therapy is in our training over time, like I think this is the ERP that new clinicians would feel drawn to much more than like the stereotype of ERP that we learn about in school. Um, yeah, it feels really like hopeful.
It is. I think it is because I think you're treating the whole person.
Mm.
And most of us enjoy that work, right? That exploration of self. And so if you're treating the whole person, then you can bring all the other stuff in. Like when I was trained, like trauma work out the door, GBT out the door. Like it was only ERP. And I've been in consultations recently that incorporate all this other stuff. It's been very affirming, ironic that I ended up in them, and allowed me to really embrace what I think even more. Because I was still like, what if I'm doing it wrong? Oh, what if I'm, and then I got affirmation from someone smarter than me, like, no, it's okay. But you just adhere to ERP ultimately. Even if you're not in the moment, you're working towards that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Very nice. I hope that clinicians who are watching or listening to this um, feel intrigued. I hope that they are, excited to come to this class and learn ERP in a way that to me it just makes more sense than the really classic hard line step one, step two, step three kind of ERP that we learned in school. So,
agreed.
last thoughts for your potential participants?
No, I am good. I'm good. I think that covers it. We will go over assessments and things like that. So you kind of have a map. Um, yeah, but I love interaction. I love if you have cases in mind when you come, we can talk about them. Yeah, it's really for us to all learn. I
Very
love
cool.
learning from you guys as well in these educational kind of environments.
Very exciting. Well, thanks for chatting with me today and
Thank
hope that y'all will join us for another episode of Leaning into Therapy. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leaning into Therapy. If you'd like to follow along, you can catch our other episodes. You can also find more information about us as a practice at kdholmeslpc.com. Hope to see you soon.